So I was thinking what to present because there are many issues that have been raised that are, I think, fundamental. And so first of all, I want to say a few things about, very short, brief things about decoloniality, okay? First thing is, decoloniality as a perspective, the decolonial perspective, has a critical view of modernity. Modernity is conceived in the decolonial term, as Nelson has coined this concept, as a civilization, but it's not an emancipatory project. It's a civilizational project of destruction, of death. And death meaning the destruction of millions of human beings, but also the destruction of life in planet Earth in a non-anthropocentric sense. Okay, so this civilization, that's why I think this Anthropocene concept, I find it problematic because the scientists are talking about Anthropocene as that moment in history when humans entered the cycles of reproduction of life to destroy life. And they locate that in the 17th century on, okay? And when you look carefully about this moment, this is the moment when you have the motors of European colonial expansion going everywhere, and what they were doing everywhere they arrived was to destroy the civilizations they encountered, okay? So the European colonial expansion, and here I have a discrepancy with the westernized left or white left, that they always think about European colonial expansion in terms of the expansion of an economic system, capitalism. I think in a decolonial term, we need to think about it in a broader sense. It's a civilizational expansion. That is, whatever was there in Europe at the time, that I call it Christendom, that civilization expanded elsewhere, destroying every other civilization they encountered, and then they brought with them all the hierarchies of domination of Christendom. I didn't say Christianity, I say Christendom. Christendom is a theology of domination that is emerged with the Constantine reforms 4 centuries after Christ. And this, I have videos about this Christendom, and because in my opinion, I think that modernity in many ways is the secularization of Christendom forms of domination and Christendom narratives. That statement in itself will take me 3 hours to explain that, but I don't want to go there today. But keep this in mind, that wherever you say religious, secular, this split that the modern civilization puts there, every time I hear secular, I'm hearing Christendom, a theology of domination that is now covered up under the word of science, progress, civilization, and things like this, okay? But it's really Christendom behind the whole thing. It's a theology of domination that is really covered by this modern rhetoric of claiming secularism, claiming they are beyond religion and things like this. In fact, they are just recycling Christendom covered up by this rhetoric of science, progress, and so on, okay? So that's one thing we need to be clear. When we say, when we are doing a decolonial critique, we are taking modernity as a central aspect that needs to be overcome. Modernity as a civilization of death. Now, what is the relationship between modernity and capitalism? In the white left paradigm, they always go back to take the economy as the central aspect, okay? And not only the central aspect, the only aspect in many of the left paradigms. What we are saying the decolonial term is that this is a civilization with multiplicity of hierarchies of domination, okay? And capitalism is the economy of this civilization. That is, capitalism is produced and organized by the logics and structures of this civilization of death, what we call modernity. For example, hierarchies of racial hierarchies, patriarchal hierarchies, Eurocentric knowledge hierarchies, Christendom religious hierarchies. We could go over the list. I identify my work, those of you who have read my work, 16 hierarchies of domination of this civilization. And capitalism is organized not as a superstructure, but from within by these hierarchies of modern civilization. So if capitalism is genocidal, it's because it's organized from within, not as a superstructural epiphenomenon, from within by the racist logics of modernity. If capitalism is feminicidal, it's because it's organized from within by the patriarchal Christendom logics of modernity. If capitalism is communitaricidal, destructive of communities, is because it's organized from within by this liberal, atomized individual of modernity. Okay? If capitalism is epistemicidal, it's because it's organized from within by the hierarchies of epistemic racism, sexism, of Eurocentrism. Okay? If capitalism is ecologicidal, it's because it's organized from within by the hierarchies of modernity known as the Cartesian dualism, the dualism between nature and human, this dualism that produces technology destructive of life. So we cannot disentangle capitalism from modernity. There's no way we can do that. The white left, the Eurocentric left, they do this the whole time. And the problem with that is that it has not only theoretical consequences, but also political consequences. Because in the 20th century, socialism, in the struggle for transformation of 20th century socialism, they work under the paradigm that the main problem was economics, and the rest was superstructural, that is, derivative of capitalist accumulation. And there is a problem with that paradigm that demonstrated to fail, which is that it was a Eurocentric paradigm where they put the accent of transformation in the economy, and assuming that by transforming the economy, the rest of things will sooner or later be overcome. And the problem is that when you are dealing with a civilization, okay, when you say the problem is capitalism, you put in the causation in the wrong place. Yeah. And then you come with the wrong solutions. So I'm saying this with respect to the people who struggle in the 20th century for transformation. I'm not saying this out of arrogance. Okay, we shouldn't be arrogant and say, oh, I know better now. No, I'm saying this out of respect of the struggle of the people who tried to transform the system in the 20th century. They're the first ones. These are our ancestors. They're the first one who will tell us today, hey, check our errors. We need to overcome the errors. You want to do it better in the 21st century. This is why Hugo Chavez, the leader of Venezuela, calls the socialism for the 21st century. We need to look with a critical eye socialism of the 20th century. Not because we want to bash socialism, but because we want to do it better next time. That's the spirit of this critique. And the ancestors are the first one to tell, hey, don't make the same errors we made in the past. They're the first one telling us, hey, you need to look at this critically, so next time we do it better. Okay? So this is where we need a paradigm shift, because this paradigm of 20th century socialism was fundamentally based on the idea that the problem is the infrastructure superstructure paradigm. Problem is economic, then by solving the economy, you solve the rest. Well, they not only didn't solve the rest, they didn't even solve the main thing they proposed to solve, which is capitalism, the economy. Why? Because you put the causation in the wrong place. That means you don't understand that we're dealing with a civilization with 16, 17, 20 heads, okay? If you don't understand that, then you're going to fail in transforming the system, because you're living on the side of hierarchies of domination are fundamental to the way capitalism works. For example, if you struggle against this system, or even capitalism, and you don't take seriously the question of racism, it will just come from the back door, and it's going to corrupt the struggle, because you're going to organize reproducing racism, which is one of the logics that organize capitalism. If you are going to struggle against capitalism, you don't deal with the question of patriarchy, okay, you're going to reproduce again the problem, because capitalism is entangled with the logics of domination of modernity. You don't deal with Eurocentrism, and you don't decolonize from that, you're going to reproduce again the same logics that organizes capitalism. So you're going to be reproducing everything that you're supposedly fighting against. You see what I mean? You're going to reproduce against capitalism, because you're not dealing with the organizational logics that are, and structures that are constitutive of the way capitalism works. So this is what I'm calling attention, because in the end, decoloniality has to be about struggle. It cannot be an academic fashion. It has to be about a struggle of transformation. Okay? So talking about combative decoloniality, from day one, we've been committed to this idea that decoloniality has to be about struggles, about transforming this civilization of death. Okay? So this very brief summary of important issues we need to address. That's why I don't talk anymore about global capitalism. I don't use that term anymore, because if after saying everything I said, I come back and say, oh, global capitalism, then what happened? I'm just reproducing the same thing I'm trying to criticize, you see? So I prefer to use, at the risk of sounding ridiculous, a long phrase. What is the system we live? We live in a capitalist/patriarchal, Western-centric / Christian-centric, modern colonial world system. It's a civilization of multiple hierarchies of domination. And the economic system of that civilization is historical capitalism. That's it. So, and then if you want to transform that system, you need to understand what are the logics that organizes it. And then you need to organize yourself in a way that you're not reproducing the logic that organizes the system you want to topple. You see the point? So this is my 2 cents contribution to the debate about 20th century socialism and how we should address this question in the 21st century, that we have to transform the system as a priority, but we need to do it better, and to do it better we need a different paradigm. And to have a different paradigm, we need to decolonize the paradigm that informed the struggle for socialism in the 20th century, with respect to our ancestors, again, okay? Not from an arrogant, egocentric position that now we're going to throw to the garbage all their contributions. No, we're going to learn from them. We're going to incorporate their contributions. But at the same time, they're the first one telling us, hey, go beyond us. Let's look at our mistakes, look at our errors, so we do it better next time, okay? So this is the spirit from where I'm coming from, okay? So after saying that, this is a very brief introduction that I think I wanted to just put there, because I think that decoloniality is becoming, in many ways, some kind of academic fad, and we need to move away from that as fast as possible, okay? Because the idea of this is to transform the system we live, and that system, we need to transform the capitalist, patriarchal, Western-centric, Christian-centric, modern colonial world system, okay? We need to transform this, and it's a civilization with a multiple hierarchies of domination, okay? And so the political implications are now when we organize against the system, we need to bring all this multiplicity of power relations, okay, into our forms of organization. Because if not, we're going to, if you fight capitalism reproducing racism in the way you organize against capitalism, if you fight capitalism reproducing patriarchy, if you fight capitalism reproducing Eurocentrism, if you fight capitalism reproducing Cartesian dualism, if you fight capitalism reproducing all the logics of this civilization of death, you're going to fail. We're going to just reproduce everything we're fighting against. This is the problem. So one thing we need to also pay attention is liberal intersectionality. The empire, before I go there, let me say something. This system that I'm calling a civilization is grounded and materialized in an imperialist world system. We cannot talk about decoloniality without talking about imperialism and anti-imperialism. There is now, I hear a lot of tendencies within decoloniality that they just forget imperialism and they forget anti-imperialism. So I always say, not all anti-imperialists are decolonial, but all decolonial has to be first and before anything else anti-imperialist. If you're not anti-imperialist, then start questioning yourself. Okay, what are you doing in decoloniality? Because if not, what are we decolonizing from? If we're not decolonizing from an imperialist system of domination. Because this civilization that I've been calling with this long, ridiculous phrase is grounded and materialized in a global imperialist system. And so there is a politics that we need to develop in relation to the struggle that has to be first and foremost anti-imperialist. But then we cannot be anti-imperialist in the way it was in the 20th or 19th century. Now, with the knowledge we have today, we have to be anti-imperialist and bring in the multiplicity of power relations that this civilization has put forward to divide, split us, dominate us, and exploit us. So now we need to bring this multiplicity of oppressions into the paradigm of anti-imperialism, but not in the liberal intersectional way. This is a problem that we are buying into. If you look to U.S. embassies and you look with USAID, they're putting there funding for, at least I can talk from Latin America, maybe it's, I don't know how it is here, someone can correct me on this, but in Latin America, they're using this liberal intersectionality. What does that mean? They have funds in USA for feminist struggles, for ecological struggles, for anti-racist struggles, for union struggle, class struggle. They have funds there for everybody, as long as you're not anti-imperialist. As long as you take that money and then you fight from your little corner and you don't build alliances and coalitions with people against the imperialist system. You see the point? And so they come and fund you with their money to make you now a tool of division, a tool of everybody fighting for their little identity, little crumbs, you know, and then I don't do alliance with this one or that one because I'm fighting for the little crumbs. They might take some money away from my struggle. So it's crazy. But do you know how this works? I'll give you the example how it works. When they organize the coup d'etat, the imperialist, oligarchic, white supremacist coup d'etat against the indigenous president of Bolivia, Evo Morales, in November 2019, who do you think came out immediately to support the coup d'etat and to whiten the coup d'etat and say this is not a coup d'etat, it's a popular rebellion? All these pseudo-leftists getting money from USAID, okay, that say, oh, you know, this is a mass rebellion against a bad president because, and here comes this feminist, white feminists, okay? Yes. I'm saying white feminist not because of skin color. Here, you could be black and be a white feminist. Yes. Okay? Be careful. Be careful. So all these white feminists came and saying, oh, he's a macho man. So we need to topple the only indigenous president in the history of Latin America, okay? or Bolivia, for sure. And so now they have to topple, and here comes the USA people-funded feminists, and here come the ecologists. The ecologists who said, you know, he's the one, the people are rebel and topple him. This is not a coup d'etat because he burned the Amazons. Everybody who knows a little about who burned the Amazon were the policies of Bolsonaro in Brazil. But they were accusing Evo Morales in the middle of the coup d'etat, so that people will immediately think that, oh, it's a rebellion. It's not a rebellion. It was a white supremacist coup d'etat, where they mobilized the white folks from Santa Cruz, a white region in Bolivia, and they mobilized mobs, arms with weapons, everything. They make massacres against indigenous people. And you know, when they arrived to the presidential palace, they came, it was like 1492, with the Bible and with the swords. And they said, they came with the Bible, they say, these indigenous people, these are satanic rituals. We come in here to Christianize and get the evil and Satan out of here. You know, and they came with this mentality. It was like 1492, but it was 2019, okay? And it was white oligarchy together with American imperialism, okay? And then you get some of the different funded, you know, pseudo-leftist groups by USA now, you know, showing their real faces in the middle of a coup d'etat against an indigenous president in Bolivia, who, by the way, is considered the best president Bolivia ever had in their life, in their history, okay? Because of many reasons I don't have time to develop here. But, so the point is that how this liberal intersectionality, we need to pay attention to this. Look, I am for considering seriously the multiplicity of oppression, but it has to be within an anti-imperialist program. If you are a feminist and you're not anti-imperialist, if you're anti-racist and you're not anti-imperialist, if you are a class struggle and you're not anti-imperialist, you know, then what are we talking about? What kind of struggle is that? You're going to be co-opted in a second by the system. Okay, in a second. So the point I'm trying to convey the message here is that anti-imperialism has to be a central point of our struggles. Okay, we cannot throw away anti-imperialism. We have to be anti-racist, but be anti-racist against white supremacy, because white supremacy is an imperialist system. We cannot think of white supremacy as if imperialism has no color. Okay, imperialism has a color, and it's white supremacy, and they're the ones enforcing this everywhere. Okay, and so when we look at the system, we need to have a politics of liberation, and politics of liberation passes through the recognition that there is all this civilization of death that we're criticizing here. Okay, and in our decolonial meetings and conferences is materialized in a white supremacist imperialist system. But we need to understand that. Otherwise, we're going to commit a lot of mistakes. And I see a lot of how decoloniality, because the perversion is how a system of domination, the world imperialist system, how they create all these multiple forms of oppression. They bring them to places where they did not exist. For example, just to take an example, racism or patriarchy did not exist in the Americas when they arrived there. Did not exist in West Africa. Did not exist in many parts of the world. And they brought it with the colonial project. Read the work of Oyeronke Oyewumi, the invention of woman. Read the work of Silvia Marcos for Mesoamerica. Read their work of women about this question, showing against the white feminists who think about patriarchy as a 5,000-year system, and say, no, this is not 5,000 years. It might be 5,000 years there, in where you come from, in Europe, but it's not 5,000 years in Africa or in Abya Yala in the Americas. It's very recent in history. So these things we need to, of course, once they impose it, then we have internalized in our subjectivity, in our practice, in our hearts, all these forms of domination. And now, many times, and that's why decoloniality is a difficult project that entails not only decolonizing the outer structure, we need to decolonize the inner structures because we have been colonized. Whoever tells you that they're already decolonial and they're beyond coloniality, I'm sorry, run away as fast as you can, okay? Because nobody can claim that. We are all, produced by this civilization of death. We are all colonized by these multiple hierarchies of domination, their ideologies, all this stuff, and we need to do a lot of work of decolonization. So the struggle has to be against the outer structure of the system at the same time that we are working with the inner structures. It goes both ways at the same time. If you dedicate yourself to change the outer structure of the system, but you don't deal with your own inner structure, you become a Eurocentric reductionist Marxist. Because you think that by changing the structure, everything will change. Then you end up where? With Stalin. Okay? Because you haven't dealt with your inner structure. So you come to power and you reproduce everything again if you haven't dealt with your own monsters, okay? The monster we have internalized from this system. If you dedicate yourself to decolonize your inner structure, your heart, in a mountain, and don't deal with the injustices of the system and the problems of exploitation, domination, etc., you become New Age. You become New Age because now you are dealing with your inner self, okay, individually, and then fuck the rest of the world, okay? So that's very problematic. So the struggle has to be in the two directions. I'm sorry for the word. But the struggle has to be in the two directions simultaneously at the same time. We need to look for the outer structure and inner structure while we're struggling against the outer structures, you see, at the same time. And we need to decolonize from all this stuff. If not, we're going to become new oppressors when we come to power. You see? Because the means defines the ends. If you use oppressed means, you're going to reproduce the oppressions that you're fighting against, and then you open your eyes. Now you struggle, succeed, unquote, and now you're in a chair oppressing other people. You see? This is the thing, the cycle that we need to finish. And decoloniality is about this. It's precisely a project to look at this problem. How can we do it better in terms of the struggle for liberation in the 21st and 22nd century? This is the spirit of decoloniality. There are people who say, oh, decoloniality has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with Africa or with this or with that. Oh, I'm sorry, it has to do with everybody in the world. Nobody can say, oh, I'm outside, or my particularism is so particular that everything you say don't apply to me. I'm sorry, we've been colonized by the same civilization of death. Of course, like Nelson said, it's always different in each place, okay? But the fact that it's different doesn't mean or take away the structures of the mission they have imposed everywhere. You see, this is what we need to pay attention. That the structure of domination they put in many parts of the world might, they did it in a different way here, different way there. It has consequences maybe in the way we struggle for resistance or whatever. I'm not denying these particularities of the struggle. I'm just saying, pay attention because there is a system here at a world scale that is affecting all of us, humanity at large. Not only humanity. Non-human beings are being affected because these people are destroying the planet. That's why, coming back to the Anthropocene concept of the scientists, I would say it's not human beings who have destroyed life in planet Earth or the ecology of the planet. It's not Anthropocene. That's a very Eurocentric concept. The Eurocentrics, they love to blame when there is a problem with them, with their civilization, then they blame someone else. When there is something they got that was so good, they say, oh, we did it. If it's something wrong, they become humanitarians. Then they say, it's the humans. We humans destroy the planet. You see, they become humanists. When it's about putting the blame of what they do, instead of themselves, they put it elsewhere. They say, oh, we're the humans, you see? When it's about putting a rocket in the moon, oh, we, Western civilization, we put a rocket in the moon, you see? But when it's about the failures, oh, we humans, And so that's where the Anthropocene comes from. Human beings have been living on planet Earth for thousands of years. And we haven't destroyed the planet and the life and the ecology of the planet like this civilization in the past 400 years. So I would call this not Anthropocene, I would call it the Western scene. Because Western civilization that has produced all these hierarchies of domination. Watch carefully that I'm using civilization in a different way from the right-wingers. Okay? Right-wingers use civilization in a culturalist way. No, I'm talking about structures, social structures of domination that has cultures, that have ideologies, that have discourses, all of this, of course, but there are structures. The West loves to talk about civilization in a culturalist way. We are superior, the rest of humanity is inferior to us because we have the superior culture. And they talk about culture in this way. That's very problematic. I am redefining the concept of civilization and bringing it as a unit of analysis to think about systems, social systems, and take it away from the traditional conceptualization we have in social science, that we think that there is a society as many nation states exist. So we have societies, South African society, Nigerian society, Mexican society, and everything is a society, dismembered, separated from each other. No, it's a global system. And we are either in the periphery, semi-periphery, or in the core of this system. We are located somewhere there, and so we are in international division of labor in the dominated, exploitative side, or in the exploited side, you see, or in the dominated side, or in the dominant side. You could be in the dominant side, you could be in the dominated side of this international division of labor. That means resources will go away from you if you're in the periphery. Resources will come to you if you're in the core. So this thing we need to look at it. And this international division of labor is a racial, ethnic international division of labor at the same time. Because the international division of labor is organized along racial lines. Who does what and how much you earn for what you do is organized around the idea of race. You cannot separate these things. So the international division of labor is not just an economic system of capitalist accumulation at a world scale. The international division of labor is also a racial, ethnic hierarchy at a world scale at the same time. You see, you cannot disentangle these things. And so race is an organizing principle of capitalist accumulation at a world scale. It's not a superstructure. That's why Fanon said in the colonies, race, it was playing with the terms of the Eurocentric Marxists or reductionist Marxists. He was saying in the colonies, racism is infrastructure. He was going against this idea that racism was some kind of derivative, superstructural, secondary thing. He was saying, no, it's what organizes the system. So this is a Fanonian concept. And so we've been talking about genocide. There, in colonial history, there are basically two forms of colonialism. One is exploitation colonialism, where the colonizers come and they want to use the labor of the colonized people to super exploit them. Okay? And then you have the other form of colonialism, settler colonialism, where the colonizers, they don't care about the native, they just want to get rid of them, take the land, take their houses, take their resources, and bring their families with them and occupy the land, right? This is settler colonialism, exploitation colonialism. Now, they're both, in a sense, genocidal. Because you enslave people, they're going to have premature death. And that's a form of genocide. It's a slow form of genocide, but you're going to commit genocide. You're going to kill the life of human beings, producing premature death. Settler colonialism is a faster way of genocide because they just go immediately and get rid of the native population they found in front of them and just kill them, wipe them out because they want the land. Okay? So there is a high correlation between settler colonialism and genocide. A high correlation. Okay? And we need to pay attention to this. These forms, in some places of the world, the colonial powers use fundamentally exploitation colonialism. In other parts, they use fundamentally settler colonialism. And in other parts, they use the two at the same time. Maybe South Africa could be an example of a place where they use settler colonialism with exploitation colonialism together, you know? And so they committed genocide slowly through exploitation colonialism and faster in some regions of South Africa by occupying the land and taking over, you see, and cleaning, ethnic cleansing of the territory, okay? So the question of land is a fundamental question of liberation, of decolonization. The same way we cannot talk about decoloniality without being anti-imperialist, you cannot talk about decoloniality about dealing with addressing the question of land possession, okay? Because if not, then what are we decolonizing from? I'm sorry, then it becomes just some kind of mental masturbation.
Yes. There you go.
So the point is, the question of land is a fundamental question. And so we need to put that in the agenda as a central question, okay? And so, coming back to the question of genocide, today, there are forms of genocide that today are going to another scale. White supremacist system of domination today, this is where I wanted to discuss this thing about genocide. I think white supremacist system of domination, I have a friend of mine from Ghana who always tells me, Ramon, these people never sleep. Never. So you think that you have achieved this, you go to sleep, next day you wake up, they took it away from you. These people never sleep. So you need to be awake 24 hours, 7 days a week. Whatever you think you have achieved, they take it away in a second. So the point is that we need to be alert about the new forms of genocide that they're putting forward. What I mean by this is the following. In the white supremacist elites of the unipolar world, okay, in the white supremacist elites of the unipolar world, there is a split. And we need to pay attention to this. The two factions are fascist and genocidal, the two. But there's one that creates a lot of confusion. And I want to go into this. Let's first talk about the traditional fascists, like Donald Trump, like Marine Le Pen, like Meloni in Italy, like the guy in Argentina. Help me. Milei in Argentina, like Bolsonaro in Brazil, like all these folks, okay? You have fascists, the traditional right-wing fascists, okay? And they want to save capitalism from the capitalists. That is, their project, and fascism in the traditional way has always been, I always call them the firemen of capitalism. When capitalism is burning and in crisis, here come the fascists to put the fire down. By what? By oppressing and repressing everybody, okay? Through a fascist regime to save capitalism from the capitalists, okay? So I'm saying from the capitalists, if you leave the capitalists on their own, they will just, because their aim is to make profits today, they don't care about the political environment, they just destroy the system. So that's why the fascists come, that's why you have a state, that's why you have all these institutions to make sure that the system keeps going. And the fascists come in moments of crisis. And that's why you have all these traditional fascist right-wingers in many places winning elections, okay? Then you have, especially in Europe and the US, where you have white working classes that have internalized racism, and they think that their enemies are the immigrants that came yesterday in a worse situation than them. And so the fascist comes and derail the attention and the feelings of discontent of the white working classes. Instead of fighting the system, they put them to fight against workers who are in a worse situation than them through racist discourses, okay? This is one thing in which the fascists played perfectly for world capitalism. And then you have, they want to save capital. There is another faction of the elites of the West, the white supremacist elites, that are the Davos people, the people of Davos, who meet every year in January. They are the financial capitalists. And they have a different agenda. These people have acknowledged that this system is in a terminal crisis. So they want to create a new system worse than this one. So they're giving up on capitalism. They want to transform this into something else. Some people call it techno-feudalism, okay? What they're trying to do. I don't want to go in detail about this if they're saying I have only 5 minutes left, but they're trying to create a new system, okay? Now, when you look at these two white supremacist factions, okay, in relation to the system, one wants to save the system, the traditional fascists, the other ones are getting rid of it and creating something worse using new technologies than what we have today, okay? Then, these white supremacists, in terms of the question about the state, while the traditional fascists want to maintain the sovereignty of the imperialist state, these other ones want to dissolve the states and create one single world state where they could control everybody through new technologies, and they can control everything. The traditional fascist wants to save the humanity of the whites, okay? They don't care about the rest are non-humans. While the others are saying, you know what? We need to go into transhumanism. We need to go beyond humanism. And what they're proposing is to roboticize human beings. Put a chip in your head so you don't think on your own. They will, think for you, okay, through the world government. Or they're going to create robots. It's happening. Robots directly to replace human beings, okay? So this is, I'm putting there the agenda of both, okay? Then you have the question about the ecology. The traditional fascists are in denial about the ecological crisis. They think, this is not true, it's not happening, everything is okay. Like Trump and people like that. The other fascists, these Davos people, they say, well, yes, there is an ecological crisis. And you know what? And here is what I say. If you look at the agenda of Davos, it can deceive you, because if you look at it superficially, it looks like leftists. But when you look at their solutions, it's a nightmare, their solutions. Okay? Everything they propose is a nightmare. It sounds nice, but when you look carefully, what they're proposing is really dangerous. Okay? For example, look at this one I already mentioned several, but look at this one on the ecology. They say, yes, there is an ecological crisis, and we need to overcome this ecological crisis, but the problem of the crisis, I call it eco-Malthusians, using the economists, the British economists, you remember, that used to say that there was unemployment and poverty was due to not the system of exploitation, domination. The problem is a problem of the too many human beings, demography. So we need to control demography, not change the system, just reduce human beings. That was Malthus, 19th century. Now they don't care about poverty or unemployment. Now they're concerned about the ecological catastrophe. So they're saying the problem is not the system, this civilization of death that is destroying life in planet Earth. That's not the problem. The problem is that there are too many human beings. And now they are on record saying that there are 8 billion human beings and we need to reduce humanity to 2 billion. There are 6 billion human beings that are extra, that we need to get rid of them. This is the agenda. Open your eyes. So they're preparing for new genocides. And the genocide in Palestine today in Gaza is a laboratory of what is coming everywhere today. They're using, this is the Davos people, they're using artificial intelligence to wipe out Palestinians in Gaza. Have you seen this? If you don't see this, please research this. Because they're using new technologies to be more effective in genocide policies, okay? In practicing genocide. So these people that say that there are 6 billion human beings in excess, these are the same people who are behind the genocide in Palestine. Of course, there is the problem of the Israeli elites, of settler colonialism. There is a problem of a colonial racist system that was there since the British took over all the way to the foundation of the Zionist state, all of that. We can go all over that. But I'm talking about how the global white supremacist elites are entangling with the interests of Zionism and genocide in Palestine. They are now working together, you see? And now, of course, we know also that in Gaza, in front of Gaza, they are looking for the gas. You know, when they take over the gas, they're trying to create a new canal that will supersede the Suez Canal, you know, with the attack to Gaza. All of this is in the agenda. But all of this is entangled with the interests of the high financial capitalists of Davos. And one of the agendas they're putting there is the agenda of experimenting with new technologies of genocide. So whoever tells you, what does that have to do with us in Africa? Open your eyes, please. This has to do with everybody in planet Earth. These people are preparing the world to a big catastrophe. They really believe that they can create a new system beyond this one that is in terminal crisis, and that the way to go is by exterminating a huge proportion of humanity, okay, that are in excess, okay? And they want to preserve only, according to them, 2 billion human beings in planet Earth, okay? People say, but Ramon, that's like science fiction. I'm sorry, this is realistic fiction, okay? If you want to call it that way, I don't know. But it's not fiction, it's reality. They have the technology right now to do all this crazy stuff I've been describing now. And they are executives of Google, executives of some of these companies that have come out in public and resigned and denounced what these people are into. I don't know if you follow this. They're being executive in different, some of these digital platforms, calling attention to what these people are building, you know. So I'm saying this because we need to open our eyes. I've seen kind of decadent debates where I see some people who happen to call themselves decolonial and anti-imperialist, all of that, but then they look at Palestine and they say, but that has nothing to do with Africa. I'm sorry. Open your eyes. It has to do with Africa. It has to do with the genocide in Congo. It has to do with the genocide in Sudan, genocide in different parts of Africa. I mean, all of this is entangled. Don't look at this as if it's, you know, something disentangled or separate. All of these are entangled projects of genocide. And they're taking this to a higher level because now they're using new technologies to exercise genocide in a more like a systematic way, okay, than what they did in the past. So I'm calling attention to this because if we want to talk about criticize genocide today, we need to see how white supremacists are upgrading the system of domination they put forward 500, 600 years ago, okay? And so I think, okay, wrap up? Yeah. So basically, Okay, basically, I just want to say, that, listen, there are 4 genocide epistemicides that those of you who have read my articles and listened to me, that we need to look at carefully. Genocide epistemicide. The conquest of Al-Andalus, the first moment of the European colonial expansion was in the Iberian Peninsula and the conquest of Al-Andalus, the conquest of the Americas, okay, the conquest of Africa, and the conquest of women in Europe, burned alive, accused of being witches. All of this is happening between 1450 and 1650. So the modern world was organized through a world genocide epistemicide. When I say epistemicide, they burned the libraries of Al-Andalus, they burned the libraries of the people in the Americas, of the indigenous people in the Americas. They burned the bodies of women accused of being witches, because that was oral tradition. The books were their bodies and they burned them alive. Okay? And they were torturing, killing Africans in the process of kidnapping. I refuse to use the term the slave trade. Please don't use that anymore. That's the master term, please. There's no slave trade. There is a captive trade. These people organize a mass industry of kidnapping human beings and then taking them by force to be enslaved in the Americas, okay? Or elsewhere, okay? So this is an industry of kidnapping. We have to use the proper language, because if not, we start repeating the language of the masters and we create confusion, you know? And so we need to, so the point is, look, the foundation, the epistemic foundations of the modern world is based on these 4 genocide epistemicides. The Westernized university that we have is founded on these 4 genocide epistemicides. I don't have the time to develop that here, but those of you who have heard me, you know that it would take me at least 2 hours to explain that one. But you know that there is the foundation, the epistemic foundation of this type of universities that we are in is racist, sexist. Okay? It's racist, sexist. We're reading white man of 5 countries. That's what we read in every discipline. We're reading a French, a German, a British, an American, and secondarily an Italian. Okay? And that's what we read in the classrooms. And there's no epistemic diversity. You know, there's no, I don't want to do to the critical thinking of Europe what they have done to the rest of the world. I'm not saying, no, don't read critical thought from Europe. I'm not saying that, please. I'm not an anti-European fundamentalist. I'm anti-Eurocentrism, which is different, okay? I'm saying we need to bring in the critical thought of the rest of the world in everything we're studying and everything we're producing in terms of knowledge production. We need to bring the critical thinking of all the traditions. Okay? If we look at the ecological crisis that we live, we need to bring the critical thinking of people from Africa, people from indigenous people from South America. We need to bring the critical thinkers of Islam, of Buddhism, of all the traditions. And then the white man, as a leftist, can enter the conversation, but just as one more, not at the center of the conversation. And then we decide what could be useful and what is not useful. You see? That's a difference. So we're moving from universalism, one that defines for you what is reality and what is truth and what is good for you. This is the universalism of the West that is always racist, okay? To pluriversalism. Between all of us, we decide among all of us what is reality, what is truth, and what is good for us. That's a different structure of knowledge production, where we bring epistemic diversity to everything we look at. Okay? And we don't stay repeating what the white man of 5 countries of the right or of the left are saying. Because then we have a provincial knowledge disguised as universal. And that's what it is. That's what we have in Westernized university, and that's why we need to decolonize universities. Yes. And it cannot be that we are in 21st century in South Africa reading white man of 5 countries. That's finished, okay? That should be finished. It cannot be. Because these people have never thought the problems of Africa or the problems of South Africa. Why are we taking them as the only source of knowledge? And we don't bring the thinkers of Africa, Biko, Amilcar Cabral, Kwame Nkrumah, and we can make the list. Thank you.
Sorry,